What's up, guys? It's Bolt, and I'm back with another Remnant 2 build guide. And in this video, we're going to go over my engineer heavy carry builds. And yes, plural, this is a 3-for-1 special. 3 different builds utilizing each one of the engineer skills. Starting things off with the Flamethrower, which is probably the least popular of the group. Let's be honest here, it's not the most damaging thing, but it does have some pretty good uses. It's great at mobbing, for sure. Very good on ammo efficiency, so much so that you do not even need the Ring of Ordnance while mobbing with it. It's also good against enemies who, are highly weak to fire, I've noticed. That's funny to see, but yes. But no, it is decent, but it's funny how, like, the Vulcan and the Impact Cannon will probably still do better than it, even against the enemies that are weak to fire. But as you saw in the Cancer and the Nightweaver fights, it was respectable damage. I actually took them down quite quickly, which I was happy about. But enough rambling. Engineer is one of my favorite archetypes. It's a lot of fun to play, and I only play heavy carry exclusively. One day I'll come out with some turret mode stuff for you. But yeah, Engineer slotted in first as the primary. Overclock, one of the best abilities in the game. We want that up, and we're specializing more so into the duration rather than the cooldown in these 3 builds. Now with the gifted trait and things like that, so we can have overclock out for a longer duration, and I've noticed that has been more efficient for bossing. Cooldown will probably be more efficient for mobbing. Next up, we have the Ritualist archetype, and this pairs very well with the Flamethrower. We're gonna have a dot on the flame dot, the burn dot, and our Ritualist will get the 25% damage buff. And we're using the Death Wish skill, which has been buffed recently. Really nice, really strong. Gives us 50% damage. Freaking absolutely monstrous. This is going to buff up all of our dots. The skill damage, the mod damage, everything, you name it. Got that crazy life steal on it. We don't even have to worry about the life drain on it because we have the kinship trait on, so we're good to go. Necklace, we're using the Cost of Betrayal. Now, a couple of other amulets can be slotted here in its place with very similar results. If you are highly skilled, then use the Necklace of Supremacy for the 30% damage bonus. Also, good ones are the Talisman of the Sun, but keep in mind that will not buff your mod damage. And then also the Stone Shaper's Chisel, which is pretty much identical to the Cost of Betrayal. It's like apples to oranges, depending on which debuff you want on yourself. But both are very negligible on this build because we're not using relics, so the Cost of Betrayal is fine. We could stay with 1 relic, and the Profane Heart will just be chilling there, doing its thing, man. We're good to go. And for this build, we went with the additive rings, the additive flat damage rings, because we're not critting, we're not weak spotting. The Flamethrower has a very poor weak spot modifier, and crit chance. So it's like, what's the point? We want to boost up the flat damage on it and the dots, so we went with the Burden of the Destroyer. Burden of the Seolist, not even affecting us. We don't care about our firearms. We're not using them, so this is just pretty much a boost to our skill damage and our mod damage. We have the Firestone because the Flamethrower is the primary source of damage, so we wanted to buff that up as much as we can. But if you want to buff up the mods a little bit more, you could use something like Burden of the Departed or the Ateri Booster. Ateri Booster is nice to have as well, but the crit chance is kind of underutilized on this portion of the engineer builds. We're going just flat additive stuff. And then last but not least, the Singe Ring got a nerf, yes, but it's still a decent ring. And if it's perfectly on this build, we will be burning the enemies 24/7, so we have the nice 12% damage buff. Onto the weapons. Yes, I know you guys are tired of seeing these 2 weapons right here. They're just so good. They fit perfectly on builds that are not reliant on ranged focus. These are just fire and forget. Perfect for mod builds, perfect for skill builds. We use the monolith for the Sandstorm mod. We can just fire and forget about it, and it gives us the exposed debuff. Exposed enemies receive 15% more damage. Same thing with Nebula. We're just going to fire and forget Nano Swarm so we can get the corroded debuff. Corroded enemies receive 10% more damage. Feedback is on the Nano Swarm to get it back quicker, and then we just have Harmonizer to boost up our Sandstorm a little bit and give us more mod gen for the Nano Swarm. And then we have the Spectral Blade as our melee. It's not a melee build, use whatever you want. I think this just looks cool on the build, so feel free to swap it out. I have Chakra on there. Profane Heart, this thing is going to give us crazy life leech. It's overpowered, it's super strong. We're in heavy carry, we can't use relics, so let this passively heal us as we damage our enemies. Really strong lifesteal on this build, so you won't even have to worry about getting hit. You'll heal it back in no time. We have the skill duration for our overclock and our death wish, skill damage and elemental damage for our burn dots. And then last but not least, we have the armor right here. I'm using the engineer armor. I think it looks really cool. I usually just go for fashion over efficiency. I always highly recommend you guys to be more efficient than I am. I just like looking cool. But hey, listen, if you're styling and profiling son of a gun like me, then by all means look cool too. But if you want to be more tankier, then use something like, you know, the Challenger armor or the Leto set or anything like that. But I went with the engineer armor, and I got the 49.8% DR, which is pretty good. Not too bad. And you get a little bit higher when you're a heavy carry. It's like 50 something, so not too bad. As for the traits, Fortify, Affliction, respective archetype traits. Kinship for our Death Wish, it helps us survive that longer. Swiftness for the movement speed, Flashcaster, because when I'm in overclock, I tend to get stuck in that animation for quite a long time, and I want to be able to dodge out of it fast sooner. So I went with the Flashcaster, really quality of life. Gifted, so we could be in our overclock longer and our Death Wish longer. Potency is quality of life. Since I'm not specting Spirit on this build, I usually use like a Fairy Needle or a Shadeberry concoction. This is up to you guys. This is not a mandatory trait. You guys could use these 7 points into whatever you feel is better for your build. Vigor, obvious reasons. Siphoner and Leech for the lifesteal with Profane Heart. Chakra for the mod duration for our Sandstorm and Nebula, and then that's it. We're going to move on to the Impact Cannon build. Alright, starting things off with the Impact Cannon build, we have Handler slotted in our second archetype. And I know what you guys are going to say down in the comment section. Bolt, Impact Cannon is explosive. Put Summoner there. No. No, I will not put Summoner there. And the only portion of explosive the Impact Cannon is the little splash that it does. That's it, not the initial primary of the Impact Cannon. So, summons get in my way all of the damn time. They're annoying. Summoner is my least favorite archetype. And I just felt like it was a lot smoother with the Handler. And on top of that, I get the Attack Dog skill, which gives me 20% damage. Beautiful to have. I get some massive damage with that when it's active. Onto the Trinkets. We have the Cost of Betrayal still there. Again, I gave you the other recommendations on the previous build. Terry Booster is now in place of Firestone. This is going to give us a nice little 10% cheeky crit. Really doesn't affect it, but the 10% at all damage is quite nice to have. The 10% crit is just extra. The 2 Burden Rings from the previous build, and now we have Crimson Dreamstone, and I know what you're going to say here too. Bolt, how you keeping up those stacks, those crit stacks with the Impact Cannon shoot so slow? Well, I'm not. The Monolith and Nebula are. Those 2 mods right there will carry your Crimson Dreamstone stacks. Don't even worry about it. And then you'll have it up indefinitely throughout the entire fight for some big time damage. Other changes are now that we have the weak spot fragment there in the Profane Heart. Because we're like a sniper with this Impact Cannon. So weak spot, we want to aim for those weak spots, big damage. And a couple of notable changes to the traits now. We are using the Rugged trait to keep our good boy alive, and also we have a few points into fitness. This is because the Impact Cannon is better from far range, so you want to stay away from your enemy as far as possible. So that's why I use fitness. So when I dodge, I move away from further away. But again, this is not a mandatory trait, and you could spec into whatever you want with these last 7 points. Onto the Vulcan Cannon. Last but certainly not least is the Vulcan build. This is the most popular out of all of the engineer weapons, and rightfully so. It's the most reliable, and it's pretty damn consistent. Like, it's just a solid skill. It's probably the most fun. Big-ass Gatling gun. You want to feel like you're in the movie Predator, laying down that fire down the forest. You guys remember that scene? This is it. This is the build for you right here. And now we're crit stacking. This is where crits really matter because we have that really fast fire rate from the Vulcan, and we can take advantage of the crits. Now we have the Abrasive Whetstone. Nice to pair with the Good Boy. Good Boy does apply bleed. Unfortunately, it does not scale with Affliction, so you only get the 5-second bleed dot, and hopefully that they fix that bug eventually where it could scale with the dot duration and stuff like that. But I always recommend carrying pipe bombs anyway. Throw the pipe bomb in the beginning of the fight. It'll last for a minute. Good Boy can carry the bleed for the rest of the fight. Get a nice crit chance and crit damage from it. Terry Booster is the same. Now we have a Akari Warband. If you want to mob with this build, this is the Wit Ring I do recommend taking off. Actually, or Token of Favor, either one, because you won't be having exposed on much. And you can put the Ring of Ordnance on for either one of these. Actually, I would probably put Braided Thorns in for Akari Warband, and then I would put Ring of Ordnance in for the Token of Favor when I'm mobbing with this build. But for when I'm bossing, this is what I'm going to use. Akari Warband, we're going to be perfect dodging a lot during the fight, so we're going to have that up. Probability Core, because we're crit stacking, we want the crit damage. And then Token of Favor, we have Monolith applying our Exposed to the enemy, so we will have the crit chance and the damage for our from our Token of Favor. And then everything else is the same here from the Impact Cannon. And then no other noticeable changes here, except we now have Affliction because we want to keep that bleed going now on the enemy with the Good Boy Bleed or the Pipe Bomb that you throw. We want to make sure our Abrasive Whetstone is up at all times. That's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. 3 builds. Flamethrower, again, great for mobbing. Okay to not so good at bossing, but it's great on ammo efficiency. You will not need Ring of Ordnance. Impact Cannon is great for fights where you're going to be able to get shots off uninterrupted because it shoots so slowly, but when you do, it's such a high rewarding weapon. It does great damage, but it's very niche on when you could use it. And then last but not least, the Vulcan is great all around. It's great for all situations. Probably the best at mobbing and bossing, you know, if you factor in the totality of the circumstances and everything like that. And in my opinion, it's also the most fun to use. But I just love Engineer in general. I love all the skills. Even though the Flamethrower and the Impact Cannon are not as efficient as the Vulcan, I still enjoy using them. But let me know what you guys think of Engineer and the Heavy Carry skills. What do you guys think of the turret skills? Again, I'm not a big fan of turrets. I like doing the killing myself, but I will eventually come out with turret builds for you guys. Don't you worry. Don't you worry, man. Please, guys, if you enjoyed the video, consider giving me a like. Consider sharing it. Consider subscribing if you have not done so already. And I'll catch everyone on the next one.